Them jiggers got me all out my box. That nigga got me all out my top. Them jiggers got me all out my box. Hey, jig to the motherfucking beat, you better do it. Jig to the motherfucking beat, you better do it. Jig to the motherfucking beat, you better do it. Jig to the motherfucking beat, you better do it. It's that Mississippi shit, yeah. Deep down in the country, turned up outside with a whole lot of money. Two-step electric slide outside, trail ride, going hard in my Mississippi boots. Poppin', rollin', jiggin', buckin', poppin', I've been rollin', I've been jiggin', buckin', poppin', rollin', jiggin', buckin', poppin', I've been rollin', push, take me in, take me in, take me in, take me in, push, jigga train, coming through, G, get your jig on.
In my dream, they call me extra. They say I'm doing too much. I'm just bougie wild. Cause I'm classy with some style. Bougie wild, 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 bougie wild. I said the universe gave it to me. I said the universe gave it to me. Hello, you guys, and welcome to another episode of Transparent Table Talk. I am your host, Bougiewild, and today is a beautiful day. As all of you all are aware, Transparent Table Talk is a platform where people talk from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place about life. The whole purpose of the show is to encourage people, to let them know that we don't have to live in shame or blame, that we all go through the same things, and that we have a choice to be renewed by the transforming of our minds and live a happy life, because all that is God is good. So without further ado, let's get into the show. I just want to say, before we start, make sure you guys go check out bougiewild.com. Make sure you are following Bougiewild on Instagram, Facebook, and following the Bougiewild Facebook page. So without further ado, we are going to introduce our guest for this evening. We have Miss Tasha, the messenger of hope, is an international best-selling author, entrepreneur, and speaker who has made appearances across the United States, New Zealand, and Australia. As a sexual assault survivor, She shares her evolutionary journey to inspire others in breaking glass ceilings by transforming their pain into power and rediscover who they are beyond their trauma. In 2016, Tasha was presented with the governor's volunteer service certificate by the state of Maryland. Without further ado, in 2021, she was featured in Voyage Baltimore magazine as one of Baltimore's inspiring stories. In 2022, she was featured in the Woman's to Woman International Network, Inc. She was also honored as one of Maryland Christian women in leadership, receiving the Deborah Arise Marketplace Forerunner Award. You can find Tasha W., the Messenger of Hope, author and transformational speaker, at www.lifewithtashaw.com. Awesome. Let's welcome Miss Tasha W. to Transparent Table Talk.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I am happy. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on Transparent Table Talk. This awesome platform set up for us to empower people.
Yes, I love the name of it. That's what stood out to me, honestly. And I was like, I gotta be on there. Transparency is my thing, and I like talking with people. So,
Awesome, awesome. We have that in common. And the different thing about my show is I don't choose the name of the episode. I am about empowering people. I'm about showing people that we have choices and letting people know that the power lies within us.
Mhm.
So I've switched it up a little bit and I allow my guests to choose the name of the show. So tonight, the name of the show is Unpack, Unlearn, and Unleash. So without further ado, I'm gonna ask you, what brought you to Transparent Table Talk?
so, one thing about me, I always tell everyone that I'm an open book. And so a lot of times when people first encounter me, they think that my life has always been put together. They think that I just had no type of challenges or anything in my life. And I'm like, you have no idea. um, and so a lot of it is perceived because they still don't understand how someone could go through so much and still have joy and still have a smile on their face and still try to make others feel valuable. But that's just always been who I am. And so it was a part of my life that I didn't fully understand or accept until I got older. How much impact that I really did have when, having conversations with people and really talking to them. And so even in my broken state, and feeling unlovable and unwanted, I still was able to kind of push past those things and still have others feel worthy and loved. And it's funny in hindsight how the very things that we go through are the very things that we utilize to help other people. And so um, when I saw the Transparent Table Talk, I was like, I have to be on this show. Because one thing about me is that I don't hold any secrets. What people want to know, I tell them, because I feel like in order for me to really share anything that I've overcame, I have to tell it. I have to have a voice to it. And I can't help no one else if I'm not willing to share my testimony. So, yeah.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much. The whole show was created for that purpose, to empower us through speaking our truth.
Mhm.
In my life, I've learned that, like you said, the things that we go through, we have a choice. We have a choice that we can live in shame and blame about it, or we have the power to take our we can take our power back.
Yeah.
And so on my journey of life, because life happens,
Mhm.
um, this came to me, and just by being transparent allowed me to be free. It
Mhm.
allows me to be free, to be me without having that double mind, without hiding behind the mask. And so, when you say those barriers that you overcame and those things that were meant to destroy you, that you turned into power, um that's why I created this platform, because we need more of us to be willing to come forward, because there are a lot of people that just don't have that voice, because society don't talk about it.
Mhm.
Just get over it. No, I'm dealing with this. And
Yeah.
so when I talk about it, the Bible say your truth sets you free.
Mhm.
Not for you to point the finger at somebody else. You need to tell the truth, but the truth of what I'm actually dealing with.
Mhm.
So this show is not about me. I see this beautiful joy on your face. I just want you to tell the listeners what you've been through, to let them know that, hey, there is joy, and regardless of what we go through.
Yeah. So, the title Unpack, Unlearn, and Unleash are the three trends, as I would like to call them, that I've seen, the themes outside of my life. And for me, to get to this point of having joy and understanding that I can have joy without conditions, I had to really unpack the barriers that I've experienced in life. And for me, that was one, dealing with the loss of my father. I was 16 years old when he tragically passed away from a work related incident. And um, so, of course, it was sudden. Our family wasn't prepared for the dynamics to change. And my life became super public, which was uncomfortable for me at 16 years old. And then shortly after that, at the age of 18, I am then sexually assaulted while at college. And so you're dealing with perpetuated trauma, you're dealing with perpetuated grief, and then you're also dealing with two incidences where I felt like my voice was snatched from me and my power to choose was snatched from me. So, when my dad passed, I felt like because our lives were now so public that we really didn't have a space to have that privacy that our family needed at the time. You have everyone coming at the door asking, how are we feeling? What do we need? And then you have people watching us under a microscope to see how are we feeling? How are we grieving? Are we able to process this? And so, dealing with a lot of cameras in your face, dealing with news reporters coming to your house, it was just a little overwhelming. And so, for me, I thought school was an outlet. So I always was like a grade A student, but for me, I really went to college to escape, honestly. When a lot of people ask me, why did I choose to go to school? It wasn't because my parents told me so. It was because I wanted to escape something that I was now accustomed to. I got tired of being known as the girl whose father died from an explosion. I didn't want that label anymore. So I left and I went to school. I wanted people to not be familiar with me. I wanted to be able to have some type of control, over my life without people, prejudging me. And so once I got hit with the sexual assault, it just brought back all of the other memories of, dealing with the loss of my dad and realizing that I didn't resolve that. I just kind of slid past it, and just said, okay, if I move around it this way, it'll disappear. But it just wasn't true. After a while, I just went through a cycle of, toxic relationships, shortchanging myself when it came to job opportunities and things like that because I felt like I didn't deserve any of it. I felt like, if I was in two different situations where my power of choice was taken from me and my voice was no longer validated, was that going to be something that was going to follow me for the rest of my life? And so I had to start unpacking that. And for me to unpack that, I had to unlearn some things. And um, that meant self sabotage. I always waited for the other shoe to drop. It was just kind of like, if I go through this, what's the worst that's going to happen? Is something else going to come out and blindside me like everything else? I used to go through this questioning guy, like, why me? Why do I always have to be hit with the heavy, hard stuff? Like, why do you have to grab my attention in this way? And so I had to change that from saying, why not me? What is it that I need to learn from this? What is it that I need to discover about myself? Really start talking about what I love about myself and what I like about myself. And, you know, how can my view of self change the decisions that I make? And so, um, really being able to establish feeling and understanding and expressing my emotions and not feel bad about it, because that was something I used to do. I used to hide them, behind a smile. I wouldn't tell anyone what was going on, and I realized it wasn't healthy. And so really understanding that the only way that I could truly value my voice is, one, recognizing it and understanding that I have the power to dominate what I have to say, placing my boundaries and really allowing myself to be treated the way that I should be. And so understanding that I don't have to settle for the bare minimum. And that's with, personal relationships, professional relationships, anything that I decide to do in life, I don't have to settle. And understanding that, my past is just really a point of reference, but it's not my landing place. It's not who I am. It doesn't take over where I'm going, but it is a moment for me to reflect. And so once I really started transforming my mindset and understanding that words truly do have power, and once I start speaking them, I have to believe it and then I have to walk into it. And so
Yes.
that's where that unleashing the greatness within comes from. And it's really reclaiming my identity and not allowing what happened to me to become embedded into who I am. And so, um, was it a walk in the park? Absolutely not. And it definitely wasn't a linear process. So I don't want anyone to think that it was super easy. Um, 18 was when the sexual assault happened. It wasn't until I turned 30 to realize I was fed up of, the same cycle. I got tired of dealing with the same stuff, and I realized that it pointed back to me and what I allowed. I think sometimes it's easy to, shift blame on everybody else and place them at fault for the choices that you make, but then you have to understand that you have a role in it. And so for me, I had to take responsibility that if I wanted to change how I felt about myself, I had to take the initiative to do the internal inner work. And so, um, even now, some days are better than others, but I still have to keep reminding myself of who I am, whose I am, and really understand that if I continue to remind myself constantly that I will continue to walk into the fullness of who I've always been destined to be. So, um, yeah, I always tell people that this joy that I have, once I reclaimed it, I hold on to it, I safeguard it, and I try to spread that to other people as well, because you just never know what someone is going through. You never know what someone is feeling, and you can't always judge a book by its cover, because I know people have always misread my pages, and so I don't want to do that to anyone else. And so I always try to treat people with kindness. I always make sure that they have what they have to say. I honor that and I respect it. So the same way that I do for myself.
And that's the reason why Transparent Table Talk was created, because I realized through my own testimony and sitting here listening to you, what happens to us is the hurt that we've experienced in life causes us to start hurting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we mask it, and we mask it subconsciously. We
Yeah.
mask it subconsciously because we've never healed. We never allow ourselves to face it. And what I've also discovered is, we are born into a world of sin. And so when we experience these things that causes us the hurt, that creates this fear, that creates this doubt, that creates this insecurity in us, we're now walking around with these things, and we're operating from that hurt place. We're operating from that conditioned place of, oh my God, like you said, am I worthy?
Mm-hmm.
Why me? And the reason this show was created, because God showed me this is, we are out here a hurt world. And
Yeah.
because none of us are talking about it, none of us are willing to say, you know what? I realize I've been operating from a hurt place. I've been hurt myself. I'm in unhealthy relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in toxic, just like, I'm in these toxic situations over and over and over again, to where it becomes my norm.
Yeah.
Like the song Kirk Franklin say, "Do you want to be happy?" But you keep
Yeah.
on doing the things that keep on bringing you pain. There's no one else you can blame if you're not happy. Like, that song changed my mind. Yeah, like, that's one of those, like you said, it's a constant war.
Yeah.
That's the sin that we're born into. It's a constant war. And because nobody's willing to talk about the double-minded, because we come out with the smile on our face, but how are we truly feeling internally?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we so easy to gravitate to, I just said, to bullshit.
Yeah.
Being real.
Yep.
That's the reason why we in toxic situations. We want to go back and forth with people. And then when you start loving on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a norm that everybody want to deal with the bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's something wrong with you.
Right.
So when you're trying to unpack and
Mm-hmm.
unlearn and unleash, like, what's wrong with you, girl? You better come on, walk with me with these bags. Where your bags at? Why you
Mm-hmm.
put your bags down, Tasha?
Yep.
Where your bag, girl? Why you ain't got your bags no more? Like, I've been dropping these bags out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, the show was created so we could sit and have these conversations, especially us women.
Yes.
Like, we as women, we got our own internal issues, whatever they are. And we come out in the world, and we not sabotaging ourselves, we want to sabotage the next female.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, we've all been through something. It's just those of us that start living intentional,
Mm-hmm.
allow ourselves time to heal, become self aware,
Mm-hmm.
and know that I got to do the work.
Yeah.
Look at me. I got to do the work. And when, like I said, I discovered this, so I was like, let me start talking to other people. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you go back and look on my page, I just been telling all my business. People don't realize I'm telling all my business, because my truth set me free. Y'all can't nothing stop me. Let me tell you, I've been through this. Let me tell you, I've been through this. Because when we hold it in,
Mm-hmm.
it actually controls us.
Exactly.
I don't want nobody to know. You tell your best friend, then they go talking about you behind your back. Girl, you want to know what Tasha did? You want to know what? Well, let me tell you so y'all can hear it from me.
Exactly. Can't nobody tell about it, and I can.
So, my whole purpose on this show is to let people know this transparency, baby. It's like, to be able, they won't, we can't even be vulnerable. Like, I'm living a life now where I'm telling people I'm disappointed or you hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm expressing myself because I refuse to hold it in. And
Yeah.
we don't have courageous conversation. We get on the phone, girl, you know what Tasha did, but won't even tell Tasha. Then the
Mm-hmm.
person we talking to on the phone go tell Tasha. Then now we sitting up in the room. All of us got masks on. All of us throwing shots at each other, holding
Mm-hmm.
resentment. We too grown for that.
Too grown. Too grown. And I say it all the time. Like, people walk around and they want to be grown until it's really time to sit down and have a conversation. We play grown, But when it's time to really talk about how we feel and or how we offended somebody, no one wants to have the conversation. They just want to tap dance around it. And I can't. Like, one thing I always hold true to myself, I cannot go to bed feeling heavy. I gotta take that thing off me. We gotta have a conversation. We gotta sit down. I'm gonna tell you in the moment how I feel, and I need you to tell me in the moment how I made you feel. But
Mhm.
holding
Mhm.
on to it, creating this grudge, chip on your shoulder, and then it
Right.
continues to build. It then isolates us, it divides us, and it's like all you had to do was sit down and have a conversation.
Walking around with resentment, bitterness, double minded because you really feel some type of way. And
Mm-hmm.
like I tell people, look, I'm 45 years old. We're nothing but balls of energy. I don't ignore energy. You hear me? Like, I'm so in tune with who I am now because I went through the whole insecurity, the whole life. Because I started life very young, had two children, Tasha, by the time I was 17, was a high school dropout, been on my own since I was 15 years old. So, I had to heal from all of that and realize that I went out in the world insecure. Like I tell people, we go out in the world fearing rejection and wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
And so we conform to a social norm rather than being ourselves. Because, like me, I'm loud. I got a big old voice. And people, girl, you loud. I know I'm loud. I know I like to talk. So it took me a long time to understand and to acknowledge that I went
Mhm.
out in the world insecure. I
Yeah.
went out in the world seeking validation. Can you imagine having two children at 17? Like, I had to go back and have a conversation with the little girl and
Mhm.
forgive myself for not knowing. And
Yeah.
it took me to transform. It took me to realize that the condition based on my environment, my experience, and my exposure
Mhm.
was who I had become, and
Yeah.
that I wasn't even living intentional.
Mhm.
And so when I realized that, I'm like, hold up, let me take my power, because when I realized that the Holy Spirit is in me, through me, as me, I got a responsibility to this energy. You hear me?
Yes.
Because when it's gone, it's gone.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I am so grateful to be able to have these conversations with people because I was at a place where I found myself very lonely because like you said, everybody grown, so let's really talk about being grown. Let's
Right.
talk about what we've been through.
Right. Right. Let's talk about why you always on the defense when somebody's really trying to help you. Like those kind of things. What are you holding on to? What are you harboring? And why are you projecting? Like no one wants to talk about that. Like you said, when we allow our situations to really conform us and condition us, we walk around angry with everybody, people we don't even know, people who didn't do anything to us, but that's our auto response. We're an autopilot.
We
It's,
on autopilot. I've been and the conditioning, like we don't even realize it because we on autopilot. We don't even realize we're operating from a hurt place.
mm-hmm,
We're operating from a place of fear, doubt, and insecurity. And that's the purpose of the show, is to show people that we can be transparent about it. Like, I know what it looked like because I've been there.
right. And I'm gonna tell you about it unashamed. Look.
Right, right. Seriously, serious. Girl, look, God is so real. And like I told people, I said this show is getting ready to change the world
Mm-hmm,
because we're sitting down and we're no mask on to
mm-hmm,
let people know you are not alone.
mm-mm.
It's okay. It's okay to face it. It's okay to take some time to yourself and heal. Like, I had to go get my picture from a little girl and have a conversation with her.
Mm-hmm.
I had to realize that, oh my God, I had conformed. Like, because I come from a single parent household with a poverty mindset, uneducated household. So the things that were conditioned in me, I realized it wasn't that she wanted to do it. It was all she knew.
Yeah.
Like as a child, I thought I was ugly. Like I thought that I needed to seek approval.
Mm-hmm.
And did it for years, even as an adult, being on airplane mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I hear that song, Leandra, Lord, deliver me from hurting, girl. Like I tell people, I love me now. I know me, girl. It took me a long time to get here. I even had to tell my children. They said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I never loved myself before I started having children. All I knew was to take care of other people." I got a 30-year-old, a 28, 18, and a 15-year-old. When I say I finally started putting myself first, they like, "What's wrong with you?" Even my children. Y'all got to realize, baby, I got to love me first. If I don't
Yeah,
love me, I can't love y'all. For
exactly.
real. Mm-hmm.
If I don't give myself a chance to be poured into, how can I pour out to other people?
Baby, the Holy Spirit told me I've raised awesome kids. They doing great things, but I'm around here broken. The Holy Spirit said you need to give yourself what you've been giving everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My son said, "Mama, I feel like we watching you grow up." I said, "I did. I went back to where I was, where I went left field. I went
Mm-hmm.
back there and started there,
Mm-hmm.
like for real. I went back and started right there. Who am
And
I?"
that's what people gotta go back to.
Mm-hmm.
Part where you started noticing, like you said, that left turn.
That left turn, like, oh my! And when I had, like, Tasha, I was married for 12 years. When I say I went through a lot during that marriage, and our words got power because I set up and I used to just, when I got divorced, I just asked God, why did I go through this? Why
Mm-hmm.
did I go through that? Why did I used to say it all the time. And I had a whole revelation, like it was a movie played before my eyes. And he showed me my childhood and
Mm-hmm.
he showed me the abuse I went through as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had good men in my life. I didn't even know what good was. I ran over them. But the one that did me the worst, I stayed with him the longest, waiting on him to love me, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting on him to
Waiting
this
on them to
day.
do right. Look.
So I was like, oh my God, that was my norm. And that's why I created the show, because I want to show people through my own life
Yeah.
that our norm can become, it can be toxic and we are
Mm-hmm.
addicted to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I can definitely relate because once my father passed, it's like the memory of a good man no longer existed. Like he was the good man in my life, but then once he passed and he was no longer physically there, and then I got raped, and I'm just like, okay, well, now my view of love is just all jacked up.
Mm.
I'm running into the arms of the wrong man, and like you said, staying longer than I should have, right? You know, being in what I call these optimistic relationships, think, oh, eventually he gonna change, he gonna do right, and he, no, no, like all the red flags were there, but I just kept waiting for them to change, and it was kind of like, no, you with someone and you still feel insecure, you still feel broken, you still feel like you don't measure up, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, here's a reward that I'm with somebody for 5 years or 3 years because I kept thinking that's the only thing I have to prove that somebody wants me. They didn't want me. They liked the idea of me, but they didn't. They didn't want me. And here I was still thinking I was damaged goods after the, sexual assault. Like, okay, who's really going to put up with me in this baggage? Is it too much? And after a while, I just got to the point, like I said, when I was just tired of the same cycles and tired of the dead ends, I was like, look, whoever's for me is for me. They're going to take it or leave it at the end of the day. And so I just loudly, look, if you can't handle it, okay, then you're not for me. But, that's just a part of my story. And I'm not ashamed about it. It wasn't my fault, that happened to me. And I had to stop taking ownership for a decision that somebody else did to me.
Right. And that, that aha moment is such a shift.
Hmm.
It's a shift when you realize, you know what? I've been giving this thing my power.
Hmm.
Something that had nothing to do with me, some darkness, the sin of the world that I was born into, some darkness that someone that was apparently they had some hurt that they go around. I call it you sprinkling your seeds in my garden because my
Yes.
mind is my garden. Now you
Hmm.
want to come over here and I got my roses and my tulips and I got my corn and stuff, and you want to come over here and shake some poison down in my garden when I'm not looking.
Hmm.
And so now I'm out here as a farmer, like, why my plants dying?
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to build my garden up, but every time I look around, my plants dying. What's going on? And that's what happens in the world. And we don't understand, like I said, because these conversations, it's like nobody wants to have them.
Mm-mm.
But we having them today on Transparent Table Talk because we talk from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place to
Yeah.
let them know the devil is alive. We are bringing awareness to people through our own testimonies. We are bringing awareness that you are not alone. If you are watching this show today, know this: you are not alone. Don't allow the darkness that happened to you to control you. You got the power. See, that's what I learned, that when you look at living in the spirit, because the flesh, that's what we're born into. And in the world, we're going to get abused. We're going to get humiliated. We're going to get betrayed. We're going to get embarrassed. We're going to, the darkness comes because it's a dark world, y'all. But we have that choice. You hear me? To die to the flesh and say, you devil, you a lie. And it's a moment by moment challenge, because at any moment the devil can get into our thoughts.
Hmm.
Devil can get into our thoughts, like that war that we go through, that little voice in our head that nobody talk about, that nobody act like they hear. Y'all
Hmm.
hear it and y'all know what I'm talking about. That's the whole war, y'all. That's what we gotta train, because it's filled with you ain't good enough, or I did this, or you went through this, or this happened to you. We have to train it in every moment,
Yeah.
at any moment. You may have to pull out your Bible and read a scripture. You may have to play something on the radio, go to YouTube and pull up something. Like when
Hmm.
you become aware and you can be transparent that this thing is a war.
Hmm.
It's a war. It's a war. So my next question is, if you could have a conversation that you wish somebody would have had with you as a child, Tasha, what would that conversation be?
Hmm. Well, ultimately, it would be speaking to who they are at the core. So, like for me, the conversation I would have loved, and I've known that this is to be a generational thing. Um, a lot of women before me in my family had a hard time saying "I love you," to one another. It was very foreign to hear that, and so and that's because they didn't know. They didn't know. They didn't know how to say it. They didn't really know how to show it. They would do it in unconventional ways. It wasn't like a hug or anything like that. But they didn't have the tools, so they didn't know how to do it. And so, as an adult, I see that now. And so, for me, that conversation would have looked like this. Um, you know, don't forget your innocence,
Mm,
and don't forget the beauty that you behold. This world is going to be cruel. They're going to make you feel like you're not good enough. They're going to make you feel like you're not worthy. But just know that who you are at the core is valuable, who you are is precious, and that you're always loved, and that you don't need to seek external validation
Mm,
to be accepted.
mm,
And if I had somebody tell me that conversation, I think that a lot of the missteps that I had taken, it would have been few, far, and in between, because I realized that everything I did in my life was trying to seek approval from somebody else's standards, because when you don't hear often, I love you, or you don't feel that comfort, or, you don't get that outward support that you desire, you're looking for it in other places. And then you realize after having a conversation, when you become an adult, they didn't have the tools. I can't fault them for not doing something they didn't know. And understanding that um, the way that they showed love, I didn't know how to receive it because it wasn't something that worked for me. And it really goes about these love languages that people talk about now, that people,
mhm.
make a big conversation on. And sometimes it's all about how you nurture one child may look different than how you nurture the other child, right? And um, in order for them to really understand the love that you're trying to give, you have to break it down to a way that they can comprehend it. And so I think, really understanding that it's not a one size fits all when it comes to loving someone without, conditions, or really being present. Like for me, that's big, being present. And so, sometimes people may be like, oh, acts of service, I did this. So that shows you I love you. But if you're just there, that's what I need, just somebody to show up and be present. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to be present. And so, really understanding the dynamics of what someone may need, um, listening intently with what someone is telling you, and not trying to come up with your own solution to help them is a big thing. That's major for me. That's key. For anyone who goes through any type of trauma, you know how sometimes you have all of these experts that come to you with saying what you should do, how you should do it, or how come
It was me.
yeah, right. How come you haven't moved past this yet? Those kind of things.
Mhm.
Trying to rush your timeline. It's like you really have to be careful of who you're listening to. It's just really important, and you have to really be careful of who's in your life. Some people are assigned, and some people just kind of went. But you got to really understand that when you're in a vulnerable space, sometimes it's just so easy to gravitate to the wrong things or listen to the wrong voices if you're not really discerning who's who in the group.
One thing you said, Tasha, was seeking validation, and that's something that we don't acknowledge or admit that we all go through it. We don't acknowledge or admit that we're seeking validation and we fear rejection. We don't acknowledge or admit that we are conditioned to compare, compete, and condemn. And that's something that as adults, that for me, if someone would have had that conversation with me, Yolanda, don't go out and compare how you look compared to somebody else, or how you think, or how you learn, or what you do, or how your voice is, or how you laugh. And, just a child understanding that it's okay to be different, you
Mm-hmm.
know um and it's okay to not fit in. It's okay to be rejected. Like, I'm at that place now. I tell a person, it's okay if you don't like me, let me know. Don't fake with me, because
Right.
first of all, I'm in tune with my energy to where I'm gonna tell you, you don't like me. I can see how you
Exactly.
upset me. Cause like
Hmm.
my cousin told me, she said, "Cuz, you one of them people. Either they gonna like you or they not."
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm so direct.
Yeah.
And I am that person gonna come in the room. Like I'm that person. Like it took me a long time to get here,
Mm-hmm.
and for years, Tasha, I would shrink myself.
Yes.
I would shrink myself
Mm-hmm.
to fit in because I've always been more advanced than my peers because I became an adult at 15 years old. My thought process has always been outside the box. And
Mm-hmm.
like even with where I am today with the self-realization, the intentional living, understanding that the power lies within me. For a long time, I was by myself and people were annoyed to have this conversation. Nobody wants to have this conversation. Like they say, you too direct or you coming, I want, because I'm the type of person. I don't like to say I'm finna, I wanna, I'm gonna, I'm trying because I know I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know the power that lies within me, in me, through me, as me. I understand that I have to train my mind. You will not speak your limiting beliefs on me. You will not speak negative thoughts on me. So I don't have a lot of people that I can talk to where I had to create a whole talk show. You hear me? Like where my people at? Because once you understand this power that's in you, through you, as you got a responsibility to it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like when I realized that my time and my energy, I can never get it back once it's gone. That when I realized that, because leaving home at 15 years old, having two children by the time I was 17 years old, going out in the world in the rat race, life success was about the cars, the clothes, the shoes, the purse, the bag, the weave. I did all of it. Like I tell people, I said I don't need to talk about nobody else. I'm gonna talk about myself because I did it all.
Mm-hmm.
But when I realized that I've accomplished all these things, I got the degree, I did 20 years for the IRS before I realized, you know what, I got here on survival, not even knowing who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I still had a void within me because I still wasn't healed from the things that happened to me that had nothing to do with me. And when I realized, oh my God, my only purpose in life is becoming who I'm intended to be. I've been a talker my whole life. I like to talk here. So, like, God, show me what it is that I'm supposed to do that comes natural to me
Yeah.
because I got lost in the shuffle,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so now I'm reclaiming my life and I'm sharing it from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place. And, like you said, I had to unpack, I had to unlearn, and I had to unleash. Like I love that. And you still like even when those little dark thoughts
Mm-hmm.
come up on you, like nobody want to really talk about. Let's talk about this man.
I tell people, and it's like no matter what season you're in, and it's so if we think about the seasons, right? Spring,
Mm-hmm,
summer, winter, fall, and all of that, right? Every
mm-hmm,
time you go through a season, your mind shifts each time,
mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
so no one talks about the changes that comes with that internally.
Mm-hmm,
And for me, like I said, it's an ongoing process. Like you said, moment by moment, you have to continue to either retrain your thinking, shift it, uproot whatever negativity is trying to come in,
mm-hmm.
and really address it. You have to tackle that thing because you could be a season in your life where everything is just going great. And you're like, all right, cool. And you think you coasting, and then something else, life hits again. And it may not be as drastic as the last thing that you've encountered, but it's still causing you to question some things. Like, what do
Right.
you do with that? Right. And it's
Mm-hmm,
like, it could be changing of your job, it could be relocating, it could be the loss of a family member, friendships that then faded out. It could be anything. And then I think
mm-hmm.
sometimes we feel like we're just supposed to go through the emotions and deal with it. But how is that fair to us? Like, for me with friendships, there were some friendships I've had for years, like over 20 years, and we just no longer aligned. We didn't have a fallout. We didn't have no argument or nothing like that. But we knew that we were going in two different directions. And you know how sometimes that guilt may try to creep in, like you should be the one to reach out and figure out what's going on. But if it's no longer beneficial for you and it's just beneficial for that person, were y'all ever friends in the first place? And so you really got to go back to that thought process and think, am I now trying to be a people pleaser because that's something I've always done? And why am I allowing this situation to make me feel like the bad person because I made the choice to do what was best for me? And you know, we don't talk about it as adults, but it hurts when you lose, you know, a friendship that you've
It
held for
does.
so long. But
It
then
does.
you also got to realize that you're finally getting to a point that you're recognizing who you truly are. And then you have to realize if those relationships were even worth it from the beginning. Because sometimes we get so caught up in our trauma, we get so caught up in our mess that we
Mm-hmm.
just attach ourselves to people, but we don't necessarily align to them. And so you got to talk about those things. And, you know,
We
everybody think it got to be messy.
relationship.
Yeah.
Like like when I did my self reflection, I was like, I was a people pleaser.
Hmm.
Like that, I was in unhealthy relationships. Like because I was the one that had the children first. That grew up fast, and I wasn't expected to be where I am today. When you said about the shift, because it's a shift and we evolve. Like I tell my children, don't go making commitments young. Like for me, girl, the baby dad I had at 15 to 17, no way hell I would have baby with that. Like, and not to take anything away from him, I'm just saying the woman I am today.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
I didn't even, I went having children and didn't even know who I was. I'm glad my children ain't crazy, girl. I be telling my children I was screwed up. I'm serious. Like,
Hmm.
don't allow my dysfunction to cause you all to go into the world with hurting yourself. Your mama was screwed up. Like, I don't think people have conversations like that with their children. And
Hmm.
my children, Friday night, we were sitting in the kitchen and they were telling me about some of their peers and the things that they were going through. They was like, we've been telling them you need to talk to our mama because I told my kids, look, don't let me screw you up the way my life was screwed up. I was 15 years old, didn't feel like my mama loved me. So I went out and got pregnant, thought that was going to fix it. Like, when I realized I did that, I said, I was crazy.
Hmm.
I was crazy, girl. Like, when I realized the things that I did, my logic back in the day, the relationships I was in, my friendships, like I admit my friendships were toxic. I was
Hmm.
the people pleaser. I
Yeah.
want to always make somebody happy,
Yes.
And um, it was like I dealt with trying to make other people happy, I guess, as a way to deal with my pain that I never healed.
Hmm.
So I wanted to make everybody else happy or be the problem fixer for
Yes.
everybody else and the
Hmm.
solution for everybody
Yes.
else.
Uh-huh.
Girl, I went through all of that and then found myself like my brand Bougiewild. Bougiewild come from my friends criticizing me. Some call me bougie, some call me wild. You hear me? Like, so I put it together and created Bougiewild, and which means can't be boxed. I'm free to be me. It took me a long time to get here.
Hmm.
And just to be able to sit on this platform and talk to people about life, I'm like, you know, put me on the cross. Put me on the cross. Talk about me. Because at the end of the day, what I've discovered is healthy relationships matter. Like
Hmm.
that's what it's about.
Yeah, it really is. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, being a people pleaser, you really know where you stand with people the moment you start saying no, the moment you
Mm-hmm.
start putting those boundaries up. And then you realize that it wasn't a friendship at all. It was a transactional relationship. You're only around because of what I can do for you.
Look, I had a friend. We had been friends since we were 12 years old. I left Memphis in 2005. I was about 30. My friend stopped talking to me. When I say I was devastated,
Mhm.
like she had died, like I cried. I would call her, like, what did I do to you? What did I do to you? I moved back to this area around 2009. She started back talking to me when I went through my divorce around 2017. I was so happy. Me and my friend had rekindled. You know, we had been friends since we were children. This was we used to call each other road dog. That's how we used to refer to each other as road dog.
Mhm.
I realized when we got back together, I had evolved. She picked up where we were. And meaning when we were young, we used to dress alike, do things alike, just style hair
Mhm.
like did alike to where I shifted and became my own individual. And so when we would
Mhm.
come around each other, I'm like, this guy mimicking me. You know what wrong with you? Like, like, and I had to ask God, what's wrong with her? And God showed me, y'all used to do that. And I had to sit down and have that conversation with her. Also, I realized when I left, the benefits left. You got to
Mhm.
realize I had become an adult at 15. So I was the
Mhm.
one that had the business mindset. Like my boyfriend was 18. So by the time I was 17, baby, I was showing him how to buy a house. I was balancing checkbooks. Like I
Mhm.
was that I just always been that mastermind and been about my money. You hear me?
Mhm.
That's what it was. Like God showed me. Like that's why she started dealing with you. She was never your friend. She was your friend
Mhm.
for your benefits.
Exactly.
And that's my real and that's my truth, you know. And but I had to realize a lot of my relationships were toxic to where I found myself, by myself. But I said, you know what? I refuse to allow the world to make me bitter. Those
Mhm.
relationships were built when I was insecure, when I didn't know who I was. Like I literally stopped dealing with everybody.
Mhm.
And everybody was like, it's you, it's you. And I said, you know what? It is me because I love me now. It's me.
Right. Mhm.
It's me.
Mhm.
And I'm okay. And and again, our words have power. I touch and agree with you on that because I said, God, I am going to surround myself with like-minded people. If
Yeah.
I can't have a conversation, if we're not on the same page mentally, if you're not working to become the best version of yourself, guess what? I'm going to irritate the hell out of you.
Mhm. Exactly.
Because I'm saying, like, nah, girl, I don't want that. Like, I don't, and just as I've aged, like I said, I'm 45 years old, and I realized it took me a long time to realize this is my temple, girl. This my temple. Like, I got to take care of it.
Yeah.
And so, there are a lot of things I don't do like I used to do. A lot of things that, I discipline myself.
Mhm.
I'm 45 years old. I'm just getting to know who I am. I've been a mama my whole life. My baby, look, my baby got 2 more years. People don't realize, baby, I can't wait till that boy get grown. Like for real. So, like, it took me a long time to get here, is what I'm saying. It took me a long time to be me. Like the beginning of the year, I brought my Emmy in 7 days by myself. People say, how do you go out of town by yourself? Baby, I have a good time by myself.
Right. Because I love me. That's how.
Like, I have no boundaries. I can talk to people. I can be like, hey Tasha, how you doing? Me and Tasha start, people think we've been knowing each other for years. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I realize now who I am and what I am, and I don't shrink
Mhm.
myself for anybody. So, I'm telling you all on today, unpack. You owe it to yourself. Unlearn, start new habits. What those things you don't like about yourself, recognize those things. Understand that you have the power to change. Drop all that I'm gonna, I wanna. All you got to do is take one moment at a time. And don't get me wrong, the old you will sneak back up, but you recognize it. And you say the devil is a lie, because that's what we deal with. We deal with the mentality that was conditioned in us versus to what we want to become. We all know what we want to become. We all know that version of ourselves that we want to be. But we got the power. Because we can unleash the power. Unleash the power. So if you would like to close this show out, Tasha, because like I said, this is your show, your moment, your time to have this transparent table talk. Let people know how they can find you. Just what you want to say on this Unpack, Unlearn, and Unleash episode.
So for anybody who's starting today to unpack, unlearn, and unleash, I want to give you a pat on the back because it's not easy. But remember that what you start today, you continue. So even if things get rough, even if things seem uneasy, even if things seem a little challenging, don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Always remember that your life has purpose and your voice has value. Continue to be the great, unique, beautiful, inspiring person that you have always been destined to be. You can find me on my website at www.lifewithtashaw.com. I'm also on Instagram at lifewithtashaw_.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Words for the wise. Thank you so much for your time and your energy today on Transparent Table Talk, a show where we speak from a humble, transparent, and a vulnerable place about life to show you all we all go through the same things. But you have the power. You have the power to create the life you want and become the best version of yourself, because the Holy Spirit is in us, through us, as us, and I am proof. This is your girl, Bougiewild, and I am out. You all, I'll see you Thursday at 7 o'clock. Make sure you all tune in every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock for Transparent Table Talk. Thank you again, Miss Tasha, and you enjoy this beautiful evening.
Thank you.
Hey, what them jiggy ladies say?